All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about how to deal with OCD and chronic pain and the overlap there. And this is in our FAQ series or frequently asked questions. And so, with that said, if you have a question that you'd like to submit for this series, there's a little link down below in the notes where you can click on and you can submit a question and we'll consider it for a future episode. So, the question that we have for this is obviously summarized, but the question reads, hey Matt, appreciate the work. My issue is, how do you deal with OCD rumination that is coupled with chronic pain, fibromyalgia? In my view, I could stop mental compulsions and live outside the mind, but the pain reinforces the feeling something's not right. And the pain's, really terrible. And I tell myself if I didn't have the pain, then OCD would be easier to deal with. So it's kind of this like flip flop between OCD and chronic pain. I'm not going to read the whole statement. There's some private information in there. So real quick, before we dive into the actual question, if you are a fan or benefiting from the show, we would really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing and leaving a comment, and also leaving a review on iTunes or Spotify, as it just helps our episodes get to more people and it helps our algorithm. So please support us by doing that if you find the show beneficial. Also, if you're looking for help with OCD and anxiety and in looking for help with recovery, please check out Restored Minds. I have some link down in the notes to support you as well. So when it comes to chronic pain, right? And look, number one, let's go ahead and state a disclaimer. If you feel like there's something wrong with your body, right? Some kind of pain, obviously get evaluated, get checked out, right? By a medical professional. With chronic pain, usually what we're talking about here is that there's no determined root cause, like there's nothing wrong, and this pain is persisting, it's chronic. And this generally, so like how I perceive this, right? And I'll tell you my perception, not what you should do, but there's a really, really big overlap here between psychological stress disorders, right? OCD, general anxiety, social anxiety, phobias, panic attacks, all that, and this world of chronic pain, specifically with when it comes to TMS, right? Or what, one of the main pioneers in this work was Dr. Sorno, in I believe it was in the 80s, right? And, he worked with chronic back pain, and all his work was, I'm really doing a poor job summarizing his work because obviously his work was very pioneering, but essentially he was treating back pain from an emotional perspective, right? And had massive success in his clinic. And since then, people have built upon that work, and, they have I believe it's the PPD Association, and TMS, and so the world of TMS has kind of really evolved. And, so what the whole theory is that essentially the back pain is a distraction from a suppressed or repressed emotion in the body. Specifically, Sorno believed things like anger and rage and stuff like that if we feel and believed that it was not safe to feel these emotions, especially in our home. Like if we grew up in homes where it was like, hey, we don't have anger in this house, right? Well, naturally, like the belief structure forms that having anger threatens my attachment with my caregiver, so I need to not feel anger. So we bury, right? And that could be like one formation of this belief. So the chronic pain forms as essentially a distraction from the emotion, because we believe it's not safe to feel the emotion. Therefore, what the work was with chronic pain was, and is to feel emotions in the body. Very similarly with OCD and anxiety, what most people don't want to do is feel the energy and emotions in the body. This is where there's this huge overlap with the intervention and treatment of these things. So when it comes to like, hey, how do you deal with OCD and chronic pain? I actually trying to look at them as two separate things, I think will cause conflict, because you're always gonna be like, well, what do I focus on today? This or this, as opposed to seeing them as things that potentially overlap and potentially like the work on one can actually support the recovery of the other. And when you understand TMS recovery, or what Sorno called tension mitosis syndrome, that people call like the mind body syndrome now, and then there's like, again, PPD, or which I believe is like psychophysiological disorders. The whole concept, to really summarize it, is that pain isn't a safety indicator, actually, right? So when we have pain in our body, there's a protective mechanism happening. And if you have a pain in your back, like if there's let's say you have like an arrow or something sticking in your back, right? It's like the pain is going to be persistent because, it's detecting that arrow. What's interesting about TMS and stuff like that, and one of the ways that TMS is diagnosed, is like, okay, does the pain ebb and flow? Is it painful in certain situations? Is it painful around certain people? Is it painful at like work, but then not at home? Because if there was a true injury, it's like the pain wouldn't it wouldn't persist. It would just persist all the time, right? And pain actually comes from the brain, not the place that we're feeling it. And with chronic pain, especially when there's been determined there's nothing like physiologically wrong with the body and there's no structural or damage and stuff, what we want to do is we really want to begin to work at it potentially from an emotional perspective. And even in our 12-week program, like we have a whole workshop that we did just explaining, chronic pain, and the overlap of a lot of how OCD and anxiety really do overlap with these ideas of chronic pain, and just all the different things that kind of fall under the categories of chronic pain. So it's like, obviously we have like back pain, lower back pain, neck pain, things like that. But there's also, again, joint pain, migraines, tinnitus, these, and that's why I think the PPD Association has a big old thing on their website, all the different related PPD disorders, so to speak. So when to answer the question more directly, it's like, I don't see them as having, I don't see them as having two separate things here. I like how I would perceive it is, I would say these things are very correlated, especially if you've been medically examined and there's nothing physically and structurally wrong. So potentially branching into the TMS work, and then even then, it still goes into the idea of like, hey, feeling emotions in the body, not and even going through like Sorno had his 12 daily reminders. I mean, there's some great stuff out there on the internet. I guess the two that I would just name off the top, and again, I don't know these people off the top, like I've never met them. I'm just sharing them because they're resources that I know. But there's Pain Free You, a gentleman that does a whole YouTube channel, posts amazing content. And then there's Nicole Sachs, and I can't remember the name of her podcast, but she, if you Google Nicole Sachs, I'm sure you'll find her podcast. She has a course, stuff on TMS. So those would be maybe two people that I would start with, that I've seen, and I've seen their content, just offer some rock solid stuff out there, to educate people on TMS and chronic pain. So that's kind of the area I would look at. And then when it comes to the OCD, obviously, again, AAA response, and then really even taking what you learn from the AAA response and what we teach in TBC, and applying a lot of that philosophy to the chronic pain symptoms as well. And again, this is obviously going with the idea that you have been medically cleared, and we know there's not a current medical injury that's happening. So that's what I would say with how to deal with OCD and chronic pain. It's a great question. I love the question. That's why I wanted to do an episode on it. And my hope is, like I said, we actually have a whole hour and a half, 2-hour workshop in our 12-week program as well, just on this one topic as a bonus, because I think there's so much overlap. And what happens is so many people disassociate. They're like, okay, the mind is here and the body's here. And so, we don't realize it's all connected, right? So working on one, you should be working on the other simultaneously. I wouldn't treat them as two separate things, even though you might be noticing the symptoms in different parts of your body. So I would say that the things, in my experience and my perspective, are that they're related, as long as you've been medically cleared. And the intervention is actually very similar, and it really comes back down to learning how to feel feelings in the body, teaching the body and the nervous system that feelings are safe, that you're safe, and sending those messages of consistent safety that isn't keeping you in that parasympathetic. So hope that helps. And with that said, I wish you guys a great week as always, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there, hope you enjoyed that recent video. We really would appreciate your support real quick if you could like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for help with OCD and anxiety, please check out the links below or visit restoredminds.com, as we'd be happy to help you on your journey. Thanks so much.